Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, we are continuing to count down those final minutes, and everything is still looking good for Falcon 9 and Dragon for an on-time liftoff just about 32 minutes from now. At the T-minus 35-minute mark, we heard that propellant loading began on Falcon 9. This is going to continue until about the T-minus 2-minute mark. The first and second stages of Falcon 9 are each loaded with two liquid propellants. One is fuel loaded into a tank at the bottom of the stage, and the other is an oxidizer loaded into a tank at the top of the stage. The fuel we use to power the Merlin engines is a refined kerosene referred to as RP1. The oxidizer loaded on each stage is a densified liquid oxygen. We also refer to that as LOX. Densified means it is kept much colder than typical for launch vehicles and takes up less volume. And this basically allows us to store more oxidizer into both of the stages. To ignite the fuel and oxidizer in the Merlin rocket engine, we use an ignition fluid called T-tab. When T-tab comes into contact with oxygen, it burns, giving off a green-colored flame. Once we have the flame going, we'll add the kerosene fuel into the Merlin chamber, and the engine ramps up to full power. Now, if you pay close attention, you might see the green flash as the second stage engine ignites following stage separation about 2.5 minutes into flight. Topping off helium into pressure vessels on both stages is also underway. This is used to pressurize the tanks in flight as propellant is pulled out by the Merlin turbopumps. On board the spacecraft, the astronauts are monitoring systems while propellant is loaded onto the Falcon 9. Again, as Megan had mentioned, the crew training in the simulator included playbacks of sounds recorded in the Dragon capsule during recent flights. So this should be, the sounds that the astronauts are hearing should be sort of familiar. Range and weather, again, as they have been all night, are really tracking green. We're really continuing to report no problems, and there really is a very low probability of violation for weather. As a reminder, today is an instantaneous launch window, so at this point, if we hear a hold for any reason, we'll have to stand down, and our target backup launch opportunity tomorrow night, just under 24 hours from tonight's planned launch. For now, let's turn it over to Jesse and Dan for an overview of events after liftoff.
Great, thanks Andy. Again, always great news with some good weather. Just under 30 minutes to T0 today. So for Crew-4, the astronauts' flight to station will take about 16 hours.
And as we await that launch time, just about 29.5 minutes from now, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks, ensuring that both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. And you're looking now just over the shoulders of our team out at the Cape there as they prepare for liftoff. As we wait for the launch clock to hit 0, though, we wanted to give you a quick overview of what the ascent portion of this mission is going to look like.
Once we hit T0 and a successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic launch pad 39A and make their ascent.
One of the first things that happens about 50 seconds into the flight, those 9 Merlin engines will throttle down as the rocket passes through the period of maximum dynamic pressure. It's max Q. It's really the maximum amount of stress that the vehicle is going to hit on its way uphill. Also worth noting, when we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic.
Once we are through that period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle down our 9 Merlin engines again. And from there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that will happen in rapid succession.
Yeah, all just right on top of each other. The first one's MECO, or main engine cutoff. That's where all 9 of those Merlin 1D engines shut off in preparation for stage separation, which is the second event. This is where the first stage detaches from the second. The first stage starts to make its way back to Earth for a landing as the second stage ignites its engine and continues its journey with that third event, that engine ignition. It's called SES-1, or second stage engine start number 1. That's where we'll see the MVAC engine light up and propel the second stage along with the Crew-4 astronauts into orbit.
And as Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back down to Earth. The first is the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the 9 M1D engines will reignite and then shut down again. Now that helps to slow the stage down in preparation for re-entry back into the Earth's atmosphere.
And while the first stage is heading back towards Earth, again, that second stage, it just continues to carry them into orbit until it cuts off. It's one Merlin engine that was ignited after stage separation. And once that happens, we wait for the call out and the confirmation of what's called a good orbital insertion, just essentially they're where we expect them to be in outer space.
About 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. Now, the landing burn is just a single engine burn, and that's powerful enough to bring the vehicle's speed down rapidly in order to touch down and land on our drone ship about 9.5 minutes into the mission.
And while Falcon 9's first stage is landing, Dragon is just getting ready to separate from the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket. It takes about 3 minutes after we get on orbit, and we just wait for the vehicle to cancel out any rates, essentially make sure everything's nice and stable before the two spacecraft separate. We should get a great view from the second stage of Dragon's trunk as it flies free. Once Dragon is a short distance away, it starts going into a number of checkouts immediately, looking at some of those Draco maneuvering thrusters. There's 12 around the service section of Dragon. Those are the first ones that get checked out. They'll also increase that separation distance from Falcon 9's second stage. These are not the Super Dracos. Those are disabled as soon as we hit this point on orbit. They're only used in an abort scenario. Once we're in outer space, those are disabled for the remainder of the mission.
About 40 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin. It will take roughly 4 minutes for the nose cone hooks to unlatch and open, and that exposes its guidance navigation controls, or GNC, that will help Dragon autonomously fly to the space station.
And once that nose cone's deployed, the remaining 4 Draco thrusters on the forward bulkhead get checked out. And from there, it's about 16 hours for Dragon to go through the rendezvous and approach phases, undergoing a number of what's called phasing burns as it makes its way to the station, just essentially raising its orbit and chasing down the orbiting lab.
Stage 2 cryo-helium loading.
And so all of that's going to be coming up soon. Let's check back in with Chelsea over at Mission Control Houston. Chelsea?
Hey, thanks, Dan. Flight controllers here in Mission Control are laser focused on the onboard systems of the space station, making sure it's ready to receive the Dragon vehicle later tonight. They'll also be making sure that all communication links between the station, Dragon, and the ground are working properly. The consensus is that everything is proceeding nominally. Teams here in Mission Control Houston, the team in Hawthorne, and the astronauts aboard the space station will monitor the autonomous docking of the Dragon spacecraft tonight. They'll perform a series of leak checks, then work to open the hatches both on the Dragon side and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch opening to take place about an hour and a half after docking. Once on board, the astronauts will be greeted by Space Station Commander Tom Marshburn, and the whole space station crew will join in for welcoming remarks to the new crew members. From there on out, they will no longer be referred to as Crew-4, as we're calling them today, but rather flight engineers of the International Space Station. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Anthony Varia is on console overseeing the team for launch, and Adi Boulos will be on console for docking. But we'll be on air continuously through Crew-4's arrival, but launch coverage of docking is expected around 8:15 p.m. Eastern. And that's it for Mission Control. I'll toss it back to the team in Florida. Daryl, I'm excited for launch. How's it looking?
All right, thank you, Chelsea, and so are we. We're looking great weather-wise here. Range is green, weather is green, and well, we're green and ready to go for this launch. We are just T-minus 23 minutes and counting from the launch of Crew-4, the 4th astronaut rotation mission to the International Space Station under NASA's Commercial Crew Program. And it's going to be a good one, folks. The 4 astronauts are strapped in: Commander Kjell Lindgren, pilot Bob Hines, and mission specialists Jessica Watkins and Samantha Cristoforetti. They are strapped into their seats inside Crew Dragon Freedom. And we can see a live shot of their rocket as we look to the screen right now. That is the Falcon 9. The rocket fueling operation is well underway. The launch escape system is armed, and that means Crew Dragon is prepared to launch itself away from the Falcon 9 rocket in case of an emergency on the pad or even after liftoff. So far, operations look and sound as expected. We are counting down to that liftoff at 3:52 and 55 seconds in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time. And so far, everything has looked right on.
It has. It's wonderful to see just 22 minutes and 32 seconds remaining on the clock. I'm starting to get really excited.
When you were sitting inside that spacecraft, how did you feel?
Well, at that point, you are really focused. You are, you've sort of stopped with the chit chat and the storytelling, and you are very much watching the progress of the propellant loading, knowing that the time is counting down, and you're just really starting to get, get your head in the game and be ready for what's happening next.
That's a very serious part of the countdown, is that propellant flowing in. You can see those systems as you're looking on your screen and monitoring them. The mission is the continuation of rotational crew flights to the International Space Station from U.S. soil on private rockets and spacecraft, and this would not be possible without the success of NASA SpaceX Demo 2, a test flight 2 years ago, if you can believe it, the safe delivery and return of Crews 1 and 2, and of course, Crew 2 back on Earth 6 months ago, and that's why we have with us the pilot from Crew 2, Megan MacArthur. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. It's hard to believe it. I've been home for 6 months already and launched almost a year ago, but time travels.
Flying.
Yeah, it keeps moving.
It was 6 months that you were up in space. Do you notice that you were in space like now? Have you, the symptoms of having been up in space for that long completely passed? Or?
I would say they're 90% back to Earth normal, and there's some lingering things like back pain and some joint pain and things like that will pop up. That I go, well, am I just older now, or is Earth just harder? But for the most part, back to normal.
Very good. Well, you've done a wonderful job for us tonight, and we appreciate it. As we continue to count down, we're looking for the next call out, which should be stage 2 RP1 load complete. It'll be followed by strong back chill has begun, and then we'll start loading stage 2 with liquid oxygen.
Stage 2 RP1 load is complete.
You can see the condensation coming off the rocket, that super chilled LOX, chilling down everything, including the skin of the rocket, so that it condenses the humid Florida air, and you see there the clouds are coming off, but at the very top it's also venting. T-minus 19 minutes, 40 seconds and counting.
It's an impressive sight. I forget that I can also look over my shoulder and see it in real life.
In fact, you just did that. We can't see you on camera, but Megan turned and wanted to see that it was the same thing she's looking at on screen, and indeed it is. We are bringing you live pictures of the launch of Crew-4 from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Liftoff time 3:52 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you're just joining us, we want to tell you a little bit about the crew on board. Dr. Kjell Lindgren is the commander. He was born in Taipei, Taiwan, but spent most of his childhood overseas in England. He is married with 3 children. He was an instructor and jump master with the U.S. Air Force Academy, and he also has a doctorate in medicine. He served as a NASA flight surgeon and then as an astronaut aboard Soyuz, where he spent 141 days in space during Expedition 44 and 45. And as I mentioned, today he is the commander of Crew Dragon. Sitting next to him is his pilot, Bob Hines, who was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. There he is. He's married with 3 daughters. He has a Master of Science degree in aerospace engineering and served 21 years in the U.S. Air Force as a test pilot and as a fighter pilot in the F-15E. He came to NASA as a research pilot, but today he's the Crew-4 pilot for Crew Dragon Freedom. A fine commander and pilot. You understand the role of pilot very well. You served it in Crew 2.
That's right. The pilot's role is largely to help the commander keep track of what's going on with the systems, any off-nominal conditions, while the pilot is monitoring where the vehicle is and where it's going. So you work very closely together.
Jessica Watkins is one of our 2 mission specialists, and she considers Lafayette, Colorado her hometown. Her college rugby team won the national championship in 2008. She's a geologist who completed several internships with NASA, including one testing system designs for the Mars Perseverance rover. She became an astronaut in 2017, one of the many turtles that are going around here at the NASA astronaut crew team. She's going up into space for the very first time as a mission specialist. The second mission specialist is Samantha Cristoforetti. She was born in Milan, Italy. She has two children. She's a fighter pilot, and in 2013, Cristoforetti launched into space aboard a Soyuz for a long-duration spaceflight to the International Space Station. Several years later, she was awarded the Knight Grand Cross of the Order of Merit from the President of Italy. And today, she returns to space with Crew-4, two fine mission specialists. Now, each of these 4 crew members will be a part of Expedition 67 once they arrive at the International Space Station. If you are here locally and watching this broadcast and want to step away from the
Stage 2
screen,
lock load has begun.
just heard the call out for Stage 2 prop load. As I was mentioning, if you're listening to the radio, you can find the launch coverage on the frequencies you see at the bottom of your screen, VH radio frequency 146.940 on the megahertz scale, and UHF radio at 444.925 in the FM mode on the megahertz scale. All of that can be seen, or I'm sorry, heard rather, here on the Space Coast. Megan, let's talk a little bit about your science. Your team spent 199 days in space, a record, you call it 200, a SpaceX record for an entire crew of astronauts. With all that time spent on board Space Station, can you explain how Space Station acts as that orbiting laboratory where Crew-4 is heading right now?
Absolutely. So the space station is obviously a very unique environment, right? It's long-term access to micro-G environment that scientists can't replicate or simulate accurately here on Earth. So it's the ability to run these experiments that teach us fundamental things about the physics of fluid mechanics, about combustion, things that we can't, again, replicate on Earth that can lead to discoveries that can benefit us in space, but can also benefit us back on Earth, like understanding diseases well enough to create new treatments for them, or understanding combustion in a new way to allow us to build cleaner burning engines. You mentioned some of the science that you've worked on. What was your the most impressive and stands out to you in your mind? Well, it's hard to choose a favorite, but of course one that is always popular is one you get to eat. So we got to participate in the Plant Habitat 4 experiment, where we grew chili peppers that hailed from Hatch, New Mexico. And so we got to monitor them over a period of many months. It was a fruiting plant that took a long time to germinate and to fruit. And for long duration missions, will provide an important vitamin C and other minerals for crews on long duration missions. And they were also just really tasty. So that was a lot of fun. That's a bonus. And you know, growing plants in space is part of deeper space exploration, especially growing them in mass amounts, right? So that you can feed a crew. Absolutely right. It'll be an important part of those future missions. Crew-4 will fly aboard a brand new Dragon capsule, by the way, that the astronauts named Freedom. But the booster has flown 3 previous times, and there you can see it there with the sooty covered NASA meatball right above them. That's Crew-4 below, standing next to their booster. This flight will be the 4th for that booster, which is a first for NASA and ESA astronauts. Now, at the time that booster lights and takes that crew into space, the International Space Station will be 260 miles over Western Romania. We talked a little bit earlier about chasing down station. Well, when this thing lights, Crew-4 will then spend the next 16 hours chasing down the International Space Station for a rendezvous at 8:15 this evening. And there's a special guest there. That is an Apollo astronaut, Harrison Schmitt. He is a moonwalker, you may recall. One of the 12 men who walked on the moon. He launched on the night of December 7th, 1972, from the same launch pad we're using tonight, pad 39A. And then 3 days later, Schmitt and Commander Gene Cernan landed on the moon. What an honor to have him watching tonight. He, a geologist, watching another geologist, Jessica Watkins, going up to space today, so they share that.
And Harrison Schmitt, one of the 4 surviving astronauts who walked on the moon. Buzz Aldrin, David Scott, Charlie Duke, and Harrison Schmitt. And they are a national treasure. Megan, we are T-minus 12 minutes and counting. Some final thoughts as we get ready to light this candle for, by the way, Samantha Cristoforetti's birthday was yesterday.
Yes.
What a big birthday candle.
That's right. It's a pretty good birthday celebration, I think.
She's going to enjoy that. But what will they experience the moment of liftoff?
The moment of liftoff is really, it's hard to describe. I've heard it described as lots of different things. A kick in the pants, someone hits your chair with a baseball bat. It's almost indescribable because you start moving so fast and you're accelerating so fast the whole time that it's just a sensory overload. You're really, really moving fast. And on our crew, people enjoyed that very much. There was a lot of hooting and laughing basically in response to that. And as the rocket changes its speed, it accelerates down and then back up again. You feel all of that, and it's a tremendous ride.
Astronauts from Crew-4 getting ready to experience that. We're about to watch this launch. So T-minus 11 minutes and 25 seconds. Let's toss it to Andy at SpaceX in California.
Daryl, Megan, thank you so much. It's getting more and more exciting here as we are just about 11 minutes until liftoff. Things are still looking great for both Falcon 9 and Dragon. Falcon 9 began loading propellants at the T-minus 35-minute mark. We should finish around the T-minus 2-minute mark. Right now, densified liquid oxygen is loading and continuing on the first stage. And again, this is going to wrap up around the T-minus 2-minute mark. The Dragon mission director and team are reporting no issues. Communication checkouts are complete. The crew access arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed, and the crew is strapped in and ready to go. Final instructions to the crew come in at the T-minus 10-minute mark. The crew displays will be configured for launch. This setup gives the crew insight into how the launch is proceeding and provides constant update on vehicle health. At T-minus 5 minutes, we'll be in terminal count, and the Dragon will transition to internal power. And we'll hear continued callouts on the countdown nets as we get closer and closer to liftoff. Range and weather are both green. Right now, I am joined by Dan. Dan, after ascent, we're going to hear some callouts for different types of abort modes, right?
Yeah, that's right. On the way uphill, you'll hear.
SpaceX, please confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
Freedom confirms. Displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies Crew-4, and on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we're honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Freedom today. It has been a privilege working together to prepare for this launch to the International Space Station. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and time to let freedom fly.
Copy, SpaceX. We'd like to take this opportunity to extend our thanks to our NASA, SpaceX, international partner teams, and most of all our families for getting us to the threshold of this amazing opportunity to launch to the International Space Station with Kennedy Space Center. A heartfelt thank you to every one of you that made this possible. Now, let's let Falcon roar and freedom ring.
Okay, so crew displays are configured. The crew just reported they're good to go. They're ready to launch. Saw a couple of fist bumps there. But yeah, as you mentioned, we'll hear a couple of different call-outs on the way uphill, a combination letter and a number. You'll hear 1A right at liftoff, and these just correspond to the different abort modes. There's 2 for the first stage, and then A through E for the second stage, and these are telling the crew essentially which direction Dragon's going to be pointing when it performs a burn of those Super Draco engines. Also gives you an idea of where they're likely to come down if we have an abort on the way uphill. But you'll hear those throughout the flight uphill. You'll also hear a number of call-outs from some of the key positions on the Falcon 9 team, the guidance, navigation, and control officer, and also the prop lead. And we're going to be looking to hear trajectory nominal, propulsion nominal, just as we make that flight uphill. It's going to be about a 9-minute trip from ground to orbit. And right now we're just 8 minutes away. And we've got a couple more events coming up starting at right around 7 minutes, right, Andy?
Yeah, in about 50 seconds at T-minus 7 minutes, we're going to begin engine chill on the first stage engine. This is where we inject a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen into the Merlin engine turbopumps before letting the full flow of LOX during ignition. So we do this in order to make sure that we don't shock the engines because liquid oxygen is so cold. We actually do the same exact things for the second stage engine, and that happens during ascent, but we should hear the call out after liftoff for that as well. And again, that is coming up in about 15 seconds, and we should hear the call outs over the nets.
Stage 1 engine chill has started.
And that was the call out. So again, a small amount of super chilled liquid oxygen being flowed into the Merlin engine turbopumps. Those 9 Merlin engines on the bottom of the first stage.
All right, now we've got a couple more events coming up. Right at about T-minus 6 minutes, so in 40 seconds from now, our next prop load milestone will be complete. We'll have all of the RP1, the fuel for stage 1, fully on board. It's at about 99% right now, so we should hear that any moment. After that, we'll hear a number of call-outs related to the Dragon flight computer. They'll get ready to configure for terminal count and then move on to internal power.
RP1 load is complete.
And then we hear the RP1 load is complete, so we got that a little early. So all of the RP1, the refined kerosene, is on board the Falcon 9, both the first stage just completing. We already heard that the second stage completed a short time ago. Coming up, we're going to hear the call out for Dragon to transition to configure for terminal count and then transition over to internal power. And then we'll hear the propellant tanks on Falcon 9 getting ready to pressurize, adding some additional rigidity and structural support as we get ready for the strong back to retract. It'll move just a couple of degrees at first, and then we'll see it swing open completely at the moment of liftoff. And that strong back providing access to Falcon 9. It's also providing all of the fueling lines and umbilicals for both prop load and all of the different gases being loaded on board the vehicle. So those are coming up. We're going to continue to check through a couple more fueling milestones as well. The final one we're going to hear is at just 2 minutes before flight when we get the liquid oxygen finished on board that second stage.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count. Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
So that call out that we just heard, Falcon 9 is beginning to pressurize for the strong back retract. So if you look closely on the left-hand side of your screen, or excuse me, the left-hand side of the vehicle, there is a large truss structure. That is the strong back. We have some clamp arms just at the bottom of Dragon. In about...
Retract sequence has started. Stand by for alarm movement.
Well, right now, those clamp arms are beginning to open up. You can see them right behind all of the white clouds around the vehicle. Once that is fully open, then the strong back structure will retract away to its pre-launch position about 2 degrees away from the vehicle. And as we get closer to D0, it will continue to recline back to make room for Falcon 9 and Dragon to lift off and clear the launch pad. And so here's a great shot of those clamp arms at the bottom of the screen, opening wide open. And we should see that structure to the right of Falcon 9 and Dragon begin to recline away from the vehicles. This whole sequence takes about a minute, a little over a minute to fully complete, and we expect this to complete in about 15 minutes. 15 seconds. So you can see on screen that strong back is beginning to recline away from Dragon and Falcon 9.
All right, now coming up next is going to be the finish of loading that liquid oxygen on the stage 1. We finish up on the liquid oxygen.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
There we go. All of the oxidizer loaded onto stage 1.
Yep, and in about a minute here, we should hear the last call out related to propellant. That's going to be stage 2 LOX load complete. And again, that is the last of propellant loading on the
Dragon
vehicle.
is in terminal count and on internal power.
And as we wait for that call out, all of the white clouds that you're seeing on screen, that is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. We'll continue to see them build up as we get closer and closer to D0. We want to make sure that we are keeping the tanks as full as possible, and the warm ambient air of Florida is helping to create those clouds around the vehicle.
Coming up on 2 minutes until liftoff, standing by for stage 2 LOX load being completed.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
Dragon is in auto idle.
All right, Dragon's flight computer and auto idle. Next, it'll flip over to countdown.
Expect loud venting.
Gas closeout has started, so we're now isolating all of the feed lines for the different gas systems from the Falcon 9 rocket. They're going to then get vented. Hear that venting start. They're going to get vented overboard through umbilicals and through the strong vac itself. Coming up at T-minus 1 minute, we're going to hear Dragon is in countdown. Its flight computer will switch to countdown mode. We'll also hear that the flight termination system on Falcon 9 is armed. Falcon 9 will move into startup and take over control.
FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling.
Dragon is in countdown.
Dragon's flight computer in countdown. The FTS, that flight termination system on.
Freedom, SpaceX, go for Crew-4 launch.
Freedom is go for launch.
SpaceX reports go. Crew reports
T-minus
go.
30 seconds.
You heard it there. 30 seconds away from liftoff. T-minus 20.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. Go Falcon. Let freedom ring. Godspeed, Crew-4. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Copy 1 Alpha.
Freedom soars and the Dragon flies forward. Vehicle already pitching downrange. All 9 Merlin engines have lit.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Getting good performance on stage 1 propulsion already.
We are T plus 35 seconds into the 4th rotational crew mission on board Dragon and the Falcon 9. The 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage are beginning to throttle down.
Stage 1 throttle down.
In preparation for max Q. This is where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures, so we'll throttle down the engines in preparation for that event.
Vehicle is supersonic.
All right, so we've passed the speed of sound. We're already
Max Q.
And there's our call out for max Q.
Stage 1 throttle up.
So right after max Q, we will begin to throttle those engines up again.
Copy 1 Bravo.
And 1 Bravo, so we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage. Continuing to get good performance though. The crew already pulling in excess of 2 Gs. And coming up next is going to be a couple of events in rapid succession.
Yep, in about 10 seconds here, we're going to be performing engine chill on the second stage MVAC engine. And then in about a minute, we're going to start off with MECO, also known as main engine cutoff. This is where those 9 engines that you're seeing ignite on, being lit up on screen, those are going to cut off in preparation for stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate from one another, and then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry our Crew-4 astronauts to orbit.
Heard that MVAC chill has started.
Stage 1, throttle down.
The 9 Merlin engine starting to throttle down. And standing by for MECO.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
All right. So MECO, stage separations confirmed.
Stage 2 alpha.
And condition.
We see that
Copy,
second
2 alpha.
stage engine light. We're in 2 alpha, the second abort mode. The second stage is lit, continuing to carry the Crew-4 astronauts onto orbit.
And this is a fantastic view. On the left-hand side, this is the first stage, now separated from the second stage, but it's still being illuminated by that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage on the right-hand side of your screen. So right now, the first stage is making its way back to Earth to attempt its 4th landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. The crew is on the opposite side of the engine that you see on the right-hand side of your screen. They are continuing with their journey to outer space.
Seeing good performance on that lone Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The crew's G-load dips right when we hit that separation event, and it's going to continue to build up now. Just heard acquisition of signal Bermuda. That means we're
Dragon,
now...
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
That was our guidance, navigation, and control officer. Nominal trajectory. Dragon's pointed in the right direction, continuing its flight to orbit. We heard Bermuda called out. That's one of the ground stations now receiving telemetry from the Dragon as it continues its path uphill. So we'll have the dueling boxes here for a while as the first stage makes its way down. That second stage going to continue firing until about a little over 8 minutes into the flight. Doing the heavy lifting now.
The first stage has a couple of events itself in order to land on a drone ship. So at T plus 7 minutes and 25 seconds, it's going to start its entry burn. It's going to be one of 2 burns. This is where 3 of the 9 Merlin
Dragon,
engines
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
on the first stage will relight and burn for about 30 seconds in order to slow the vehicle down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Acquisition of signal, New Hampshire.
All right, now on the New Hampshire ground station, another call out there from our guidance, navigation, and control officer, nominal trajectory. Second stage continues to power. Call out just then, propulsion is nominal, the engine performing as expected. Crew pulling a little more than 1¼ Gs right now. Again, that's going to continue to ramp up, peaking just before we get to that second stage cutoff.
Yep, this single engine here, Dan, can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space, so they are definitely feeling it.
And we're already about 200 kilometers in altitude.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
Great call out that we are headed in the direction that we need to, and we just heard from Kjell, the commander.
And we should get one more of those trajectory check-ins in about 30 seconds from now. And then we'll start to hit our events in rapid succession as the first stage continues to make its way back home. The second stage will start to wrap up its job of delivering these astronauts into orbit.
Yeah, we don't see it on screen right now, but the first stage is making its way back to our drone ship in about...
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
In about 30 seconds here, it's going to start its entry burn.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
And there was the other call out that you were mentioning, Dan, about the trajectory. Things, again, continuing to look very, very good for the ascent portion.
Stage 2, flight termination system.
So for those just joining us,
Stage
we
1
are
entry burn startup.
just under 8 minutes into flight. We have 4 astronauts as part of the Crew-4 operational mission. You can see on the left-hand side, this is our first stage with 3 of 9 Merlin engines reignited and slowing down the first stage before we hit the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. So this first stage has one
Stage
more
1
burn
entry
left.
burn shutdown.
That's going to happen just before the T+9 minute mark, and then we'll attempt landing for the 4th time on our drone ship that's currently parked in the Atlantic Ocean.
So as that entry burn completes,
Terminal guidance.
we're in the final stages of the second stage's flight into orbit. We're about to pass through several of the different abort phases, which essentially correspond to areas along the very northeastern seaboard of the U.S. and then across the Atlantic and off the coast of Scotland. But continuing to get call-outs that Stage 2 propulsion is nominal.
Copy, Shannon.
And the call-out of Shannon, Ireland, that's
Stage 1 transonic.
indicative of our final abort zone.
And after this second stage engine shuts off its engine, we are going to be listening for the confirmation of a good orbit, which tells us that the crew and Dragon are where they need to be in
Stage
orbit.
1 landing burn.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And that was the call out that we wanted on the second stage. Here's a fantastic view
We're glad to be in orbit.
of the
Dragon,
first stage.
SpaceX launch escape system is disarmed.
Fantastic view of the
Stage 3
first
landing legs
stage.
deployed.
Landing legs have been deployed, returning back to Earth for a 4th time. And just like that, a 4th landing as part of the Crew-4 mission. You can hear the applause behind us. But prior to this,
Acquisition signal, Newfoundland.
we saw the crew, we heard that the crew has been successfully inserted into a good orbit, and this is them in 0G, and 2 of them for the first time.
And getting a look, it looks like we might have a couple of 0G indicators. I see a turtle in Bob Hines' hands. That is the nickname for the astronaut class from 2017, of which he and Jessica Watkins were a part. I believe we've got a monkey floating over by Samantha Cristoforetti. But first view of Crew-4 on orbit, experiencing microgravity. They're still attached to that second stage, which at this point is going to continue to coast for a couple of minutes. It's got small reaction control thrusters on the upper part of the second stage that can be used to cancel out rates, essentially making sure that they're on a stable coast before we get to that separation event, after which we'll see Dragon Freedom flying free for the first time.
We've got, a couple of stowaways. The Turtle class really does seem to be taken over now with a Turtle 0G indicator.
All right, we should be just about a minute away from that separation, after which a number of activation and checkouts occur automatically. First, checking out 12 of those Draco maneuvering thrusters all around the service section of the Dragon capsule. We'll also start to get ready for the nose cone opening, which it stays closed for the flight uphill to help protect all of those guidance, navigation, and control sensors. It's also covering 4 of the Draco thrusters that we're going to be using for providing the majority of the thrust, the push for these different phasing burns as Dragon chases down the space station. But all right, standing by for separation.
So typically we'll get a shot from the second stage looking at the unpressurized service section of the Dragon. And there it is. What a magnificent view.
looking like a good separation, good rates.
Roll-ups and
Dragon Freedom flying free for the very first time. So again, now those Draco checkouts are starting. And pretty shortly we'll get to the nose cone deploy. And that's when they'll start to open up hooks that are holding the nose cone in place. And it sounds like that has begun.
And expect the loss of signal, New Hampshire.
So though the crew, as we see them here inside Dragon, they have separated from the second stage, but they still have about a 16-hour journey before making it to the International Space Station and docking tomorrow, or today, later on today. But it is so great to see them flying free in space.
They do, and we did get confirmation that that nose cone deploy sequence has started. So again, those 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during the launch and ascent portions have to retract, and then the nose cone will be able to start to swing open and deploy, and that will uncover a number of critical systems for Dragon's flight up to the space station, not the least of which
Freedom, LD, I hope you enjoyed your ride. It's been an honor flying with you, Kjell, Farmer, Samantha, Jessica. Have a safe journey to the space station. Say hi to Crew-4 for us, and we'll look forward to seeing you when you get home. Indeed, the dream is alive. Have some words from our CE.
Dragon, CE, privilege having you fly with us. Good mission. We'll see you later.
Hey, and from Freedom, we want to thank a big thank you to SpaceX, the Commercial Crew Program, and specifically the Falcon 9 team for a great ride. It is a privilege to get to fly this new vehicle, the Crew Dragon Freedom, to orbit. Huge thanks to the teams that assembled and prepared her for flight. We're feeling great and looking forward to the view.
All right, so some congratulatory words from the launch director and the chief engineer up to the crew on board Freedom. Kjell radioing down their thanks for the smooth ride to orbit. So, as Andy said, we've got about 16 hours.
And Freedom, SpaceX can confirm nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
Okay, Freedom copies. Equals activation complete. We're going to go visors up.
And that call from the core here in Hawthorne.
Core copies, here we go.
Indicating that we had good checkouts of those 12 Draco thrusters around the service section. There's 4 to go after we get the nose cone open and the ECLIS, the environmental control and life support system, activated and running inside Dragon. Crew will be able to get their visors open and pretty soon get out of their suits and settle in for a 16-hour ride to the space station. So, with Crew-4 now successfully on orbit, let's head over to our counterparts at the Kennedy Space Center. It looked great on TV. I'm sure it was even better in person. Daryl, Megan, how are things over there on the ground?
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and you're absolutely right. It was phenomenal here at the Kennedy Space Center watching the launch of Crew-4. Wow, Megan MacArthur, NASA astronaut, pilot for Crew-2, and she's been on the space shuttle. You got to watch that launch, and I saw you taking it in.
It was spectacular. It really was wonderful to see a launch up close again, a night launch, which has been a while since I've seen one in person. Just spectacular. It never gets old. I think if it gets old, you're probably in the wrong business.
Absolutely. It was so loud, so powerful. The roar of the engines when it lifted off, it seemed louder than usual, but that just might be because of the atmospherics. And then that light off the water, what a beautiful sight. Not only were we watching, but also crew on station tuned in to the NASA TV broadcast, watching them lift off as they await for them to arrive tonight at 8:15.
That's right. I know they're excited for lots of reasons. One, they're going to get to see their friends, and they're going to get to come home themselves. So they're looking forward to it.
All right. Well, Megan, thank you for your thoughts on that. And We also have a very special guest who watched the launch with us here at the Kennedy Space Center. Let's get over to Megan Cruz, who is with one of the astronauts who walked on the moon almost 50 years ago. Megan?
Yeah, I am really honored to be standing next to Apollo astronaut Harrison Schmitt. I really cannot believe I'm standing next to you. It really is an honor.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm happy I'm here.
Oh, well, we're so thrilled to have you here. And actually, we're going to pull up some old photos of you. Why don't we take a trip down memory lane?
Hey, why not?
So for those who don't know, Harrison was the last person to step on the moon with Apollo 17 in 1972. What picture are we looking at right here?
Well, this is the crew, Ron Evans, Gene Cernan, myself. This was sort of the publicity shot with the lunar rover. We were the third mission to have a lunar rover that we drove around on the surface of the moon. We actually landed in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And the rover enabled us to visit both sides of the valley and really just had not only a great time, but tremendous scientific return.
How does it feel to look back on these pictures? There's you on the moon there. To look back on these pictures and to be standing here 50 years later and you just watched Crew-4 launch.
Well, of course, I'm happy to be standing here 50 years later.
Good point.
And the launch of the Falcon 9 and the Dragon to the International Space Station was spectacular. You know, those of us that rode a Saturn V into space, you know, are a little bit jaded about the smaller rockets, but still, it really was something. And on board was a geologist,
yes.
Jessica Watkins.
Yes, you got your special invite today from Jessica. I mean, what do you think about that?
That's great. Jessica and I have worked a little bit in Houston with the lunar samples and the like during the Apollo 11 celebration, 50th anniversary celebration, and she was very kind enough to invite me and my wife here, my wife Teresa Fitzgibbon, and we sort of consider ourselves the Jessica team.
Oh, that's so sweet. Just what do you think about the fact that there is a geologist on board, the importance of having a geologist for this mission?
Well, for me, I did not have a chance to gain the kind of operational experience that Jessica is getting. I gained my operational experience from learning to fly T-38s and helicopters, and then a lot of simulator time. She's gaining it in space, and that's very important.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope it'll stand us in good stead for being part of one of the Artemis crews that goes to the moon.
Yeah, absolutely. Artemis, let's talk about that. That's going to return us to the moon. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. It's been a long time. There have been several attempts to get us back there. The two Bush presidents both tried to get something going, and it didn't materialize, but maybe Artemis is the third time's the charm.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to it, believe me.
Do you think we're ready to go back to the moon? We need to go back to the moon?
Oh, I think we've been ready for a long time. The technology is there. The big difference is NASA had to develop the technology for Apollo, advance old technologies as well as new technologies. The thing that's changed is the commercial sector has taken the NASA technologies and moved forward, and now NASA has to integrate that into a new lunar program such as Artemis. And you saw that tonight with the Falcon 9 launch. That was developed by the SpaceX Corporation, and it's turned out to be an extraordinarily reliable vehicle for launches in general, and in particular now the fourth launch to the International Space Station.
Yeah, well, like you said, I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you will, that you witness Crew-4, and then also that you'll see Artemis launch soon. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's great, and my best to everyone in NASA, and keep doing great work.
Perfect, thank you so much. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Megan, and thank you to moonwalker Harrison Schmitt. Boy, for astronaut Jessica Watkins to have a moonwalker on your team is a pretty nice thing.
That's pretty great, yeah.
It's fantastic. Well, we're joined now by Josef Aschbacher, Director General of the European Space Agency, who just watched his first crew launch just a few moments ago. Josef, thanks for being here, and what'd you think?
Oh, thank you, Daryl. It's just a fascinating moment. This is my first crew launch. I've been Director General only since 1 year, so this is really a good experience. I have to say this is phenomenal. But let me also say a word of thank you to NASA. NASA is an enormously good partner to us, the European Space Agency. It's really a pleasure working with NASA. We have very good relationships, a very strong partnership. But also thank you to SpaceX for delivering our astronaut, Samantha Cristoforetti, up into the space station, and this is a very important moment. But for us also at the European Space Agency, we are building up a strong human exploration program, and Samantha is the third astronaut now in a row, following Thomas Pesquet, Matthias Maurer, who is in space right now, and now joined by Samantha. So a year and a half of presence of ESA astronauts in the space station is the longest time ever, and therefore for us this is really a very important moment, and I'm very excited personally, but thrilled to see what's coming. Samantha will have a lot of work to do, a lot of experiments. She is also a very good role model for us in Europe, but worldwide, lady, and this is also on top of all the other qualities she has. So really excited, and once more, thank you NASA, thank you SpaceX for doing this fantastic job with us together.
And we appreciate all the work that ESA does as well for the NASA team and for Commercial Crew. And you can see Samantha, she's on the far right-hand side. Actually, you can see her boot there as she goes up into space. And a quick operational update, we have deployed the nose cone from the front of Dragon. That's an important milestone in order for Dragon to dock to the International Space Station. So we passed that milestone, and the crew continues, as you can see there, on their flight through space. You mentioned Samantha Cristoforetti. She was speaking the other day in a press conference. Not sure if she's going to get to do an EVA. It's possible. But one of the exciting technologies that you have up there right now is the European arm that's on board. This will be over on the Russian segment, but I'm fascinated by this arm, which like has hands on two ends and like crawls around on the station. It's pretty neat.
It's pretty neat, yeah. In fact, we launched it last year, and it's really neat. It's it has you know, you can really move it any way you want, and this is it has to be commissioned. This ERA it's called, and it is on the program of Samantha's tasks among many to support the commissioning of this ERA, and this is something that is quite a unique piece of hardware. Talking of Samantha. It's probably not everyone knows, but yesterday was her birthday.
Yes,
and today she flies up on space, so it's a nice birthday gift to her to get into a rocket and up to the space station. Happy birthday, Samantha.
It's a big birthday candle.
That's right. We lit a big birthday candle for Samantha. What is happening next for ESA? You know, you mentioned today that budgets are on the top of everybody's mind. You've got the member states that are going to be seeking to fund. You're going to be looking for funding from them. What's next for you, the next big thing for ESA?
I mean, I'm being here now at the Space Center. This is actually not my day job. My day job is talking to politicians, to my member states, and really put the program together for the next 3 years. And we're having a very ambitious program we are putting together. Certainly, exploration is a priority. We yesterday had a very nice, very constructive Administrator of NASA, Bill Nelson, and his team. We have many projects in the pipeline where we are working together already, and we want to intensify and come with more activities. Let me, of course, mention the space station, where we continue the operational supply of our activities, our hardware partners, which are then in exchange giving us flights of astronauts. So this is nominally proceeding, despite all the discussions you sometimes hear in the news. Then, of course, on Mars sample return, we are preparing together with NASA our contribution to Mars sample return. We are also planning missions to the moon. We have a large lander which we are preparing in Europe, which would be, again, a part of the contribution to NASA, again, in exchange for NASA flights. This will be a huge one. It will be a truck, actually, going up to the moon, capable of launching or transporting about 1.5 tons of mass to the moon, which of course is necessary to build up bases and the various infrastructure which will be required. And we have many other activities where we work very nicely and very closely with NASA. I should mention also ExoMars. ExoMars was a mission we did prepare together with Russia until very recently, and through the invasion we cannot continue there, obviously. The rover called Rosalind Franklin rover is ready for launch. We would have shipped it to Baikonur, but of course now I had to stop, I had to suspend this cooperation, and now I have to find new ways of bringing this really incredibly fascinating rover onto the Mars surface. So I'm working now with my member states, obviously, but we're doing industrial studies, and again, NASA has reached out to us, supporting us with expertise on how we could bring this rover now to the Mars surface and replacing obviously those components that have been Russian with European ones, or possibly with some help of the US. So we have yet to see that, and decisions are being prepared right now. We have decisions on that in the July timeframe. But our big moment of ESA is in November, when we come with a big package of next space programs to our member states to fund our activities for the next 3 years.
Well, good luck with that. Good luck with continuing to work the ExoMars. That was a bit of a blow. But your moon stuff, we've got part of your hardware over there in the VAB right now. And so have you had a chance to go over there and see the SLS rocket?
I have seen, of course, the SLS rocket. I've seen it last time in the VAB. I've seen it just the day before yesterday out in the open air. And I have to say, this is so impressive. I'm very proud to be part of the SLS. You see a little ESA logo under the NASA logo, because we provide the ESM, the European Service Module, a very element on the critical path. And again, once more, thank you, NASA, for this strong partnership, which we enjoy working with you.
All right. Josef Asbacher, Director General of ESA, thank you so much for making time and joining us, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, mentioning the International Space Station, NASA recently announced the International Space Station would be extended another 8 years and then decommissioned.
The International Space Station, an unparalleled laboratory for cutting-edge research unachievable in Earth's gravity for the benefit of all humanity. An observatory for Earth's evolving climate. A beacon of international collaboration. And our home until 2030. As the station enters its third decade, it is busier than ever, developing technology for human exploration missions to the Moon and Mars, finding new ways to combat disease, and acting as a testbed for in-space manufacturing of advanced materials and new medical products. Humanity's future is an ever-expanding team of nations and companies enabling exploration together and for the benefit of all. The International Space Station is a critical step on a great journey ahead, to the Moon and beyond.
Today's launch is the 4th operational mission for NASA's Commercial Crew program. It has seen many successes in just a few short years. NASA's Megan Cruz is back now with some leadership from our NASA program. Megan.
Yeah, I'm here with Dana Hutcherson. She's the Deputy Manager of NASA's Commercial Crew program. It is really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So what did you think of today's launch?
It's so exciting. The launches never get old. I'm always excited to get to see a launch and to be up here on the balcony and hear new people watch the launch. It's always just a breath of fresh air to hear that.
Yeah.
Our mission's not done though, so we're always watching, and I don't breathe a sigh of relief until we actually land the crew. So
what I thought was really cool though is right after a liftoff, pretty shortly after a liftoff, we heard the commander Kjell give you guys a shout out, the Commercial Crew program a shout out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was really awesome. We have a lot of great people that work in our program, and a lot of people that spend tireless days working with them, both SpaceX and NASA, and all of our teams that work together. So really appreciate that shout out from Kjell.
Well, is this program, would you say, accomplishing what it set out to do when it was created 11 years ago?
Yeah, I do believe it has. I mean, it was cost-effective, safe, reliable transportation to low Earth orbit and to the International Space Station. So yes, I believe we have definitely achieved that goal. And also working with these commercial companies, building multiple commercial spaceflight systems, delivering our astronauts to space. It's also opened up the doors for the private industry as well, and so enabling that space transportation for the public. So it's just, we actually had 2 private missions in the last year, right, that SpaceX has accomplished. So I think our goals in the commercial crew program, we've gone above and beyond on meeting those goals.
Yeah, you've really been the springboard into what we can expect to be our near future, it sounds like, with all these commercial programs, like you said.
Exactly. It's a new era with NASA and the commercial and human spaceflight, for sure.
Dana, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
All right, thank you.
Daryl and Megan, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Megan. Jell, Bob, Jessica, and Samantha are now on course to arrive at the International Space Station around 8:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time tonight. And NASA TV will stay on the air for continuous live coverage along Crew-4's entire ride to station. Meanwhile, SpaceX's YouTube channel will join live coverage starting roughly 2 hours prior to docking. And though our coverage here at Kennedy Space Center is concluding, we will turn it over to the team in Houston to take us through the next phases of Crew-4's mission, all the way through arrival at the International Space Station. Megan, when they arrive at the International Space Station, you were talking about a moment ago, it's a big moment. You arrived, you finally got there.
It is such a big moment. It is sort of the culmination of so much training, not just your mission-specific training, but something that you have been, working towards pretty much your whole career. And so it's a fantastic moment to come through the hatch, to see your friends there waiting for you, smiling at you. There's a lot of emotions, just a lot of joy, and you're about to get started on a pretty great adventure.
Bob Hines and Jessica Watkins flying for the first time. I wonder what that was like for them.
Well, I'm sure they're still talking about it and still processing it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of things that happen so quickly that it's hard to take it all in, and they'll be talking about it for days to come, I think. But we're going to see great things from them, from all 4 of them, once they reach the International Space Station. I think big smiles all around, but lots of great work as well.
Absolutely, and we look forward to seeing the work that they will do. For those of you watching online on YouTube, make sure you take a look at the description below the video. We'll have a new link for the Crew-4 coast phase, and that live coverage will continue at that new location shortly. If you're watching on NASA TV, well, you won't notice a thing, and coverage will continue. Also, a post-launch news conference is scheduled for 5:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on NASA TV. And you can find mission updates at any time on Twitter, at NASA, at SpaceX, and on the web at nasa.gov, including the timing on any potential live tours of Dragon Freedom during the trip to the station. Now, before we sign off, I want to thank Megan MacArthur for being on the launch broadcast and sharing your incredible insight and experiences on an overnight that started yesterday and ran into today. Really appreciate it. You did
Absolutely.
a fantastic job.
It was totally worth it.
Oh, fantastic. It was great to hear you say that. And so now we will leave you with a little bit of a replay, and thanks to all of our guests who came here, the NASA social participants who joined us and are now going to share the story of their adventures here with their audiences. And of course, we thank all of you who are watching right now. Here are now some highlights from the journey to orbit off the Earth for the Earth. Take care, everyone, and keep looking up. This